It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
I mean, I usually have something witty to say there, but I completely forgot what I would say. Also, everything seems frozen. Wait a second. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I don't know. What's with this stream?
Uh-oh. What's going on?
I don't know. Let me just.
We're going to reboot it. We need to reboot the stream.
Like so for those of you who are listening on the podcast, which is always much better audio, right, Mark? The podcast, much better audio.
Well, it's because we fix it in post. Always.
yeah, we fix it. Speaking, we should talk about that. But if you watch the live stream, which doesn't have not as great quality, right? We have a bumper kind of video that plays, and it just seemed like at the end it hung and didn't go away, and so it didn't bring our smiling faces up into the forefront here. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but
not sure.
Were you able to push the latest show, Mark?
I did.
Awesome. So I feel really good about the production flow now, because it basically says line up the audio. So we all kind of, match with the bumper, and your and my audio are all synced together. Mm-hmm. Then have the audio software mix it down, pan us left and right for transcription, and do a nice little mix where we're a little bit left and right for with the bumper music for the podcast itself. And then I just uploaded it to Podium and had it generate those show notes, and those show notes are so dry. And like the transcript, it makes it feel like this is a completely different show where we're actually serious about what we do. And then I give it to ChatGPT and I say, remember, we are basically a joke. Can you rewrite this in a way that's funny? And it generates. I
love that's a prompt.
Well, I don't know. I didn't quite say we're basically a joke, but it's essentially that. And I say, can you rewrite this in my style and conciseness that I do for like the description of the show, which is very, like, what is it? We get like one or two sentences. That's pretty much what it is. Giving some idea of what's going on. And then it does that. And then I edit it a little bit and put it up. So I no longer have to listen to our show again to remember what we did last week or the week before or whenever we recorded it. So
I don't remember what I did 4 weeks ago, because it seems like it's been that long since we talked.
How long has it been? It was
been like 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know.
It was the 20. I thought it was like the 22nd. So yeah, it's been about. Wow, has it really been 4 weeks?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I was on vacation. I had a kidney stone again. So
ouch.
Again. It's the same one. It just
again.
It just wouldn't come out, So
okay, let's keep this pretty clean here for my ears at least.
For your ears, is this causing you some distress?
It will.
So what happened?
Be careful about how deep we go into this medical talk here.
So what happened was on a Wednesday, the Wednesday before the show we didn't do because I was like, I'm catching up because being out for a day in the hospital, right? On that, and if we want to talk about what is broken in the American healthcare system, we can do that too.
Oh, let's not go there.
And to be clear, it's not the doctors and it's not what we can do. It's the ridiculous way that we consider billing. But other than that, so Wednesday I start to have kidney pain again. I had this a couple months ago, and there was apparently a 4 mil stone that was trying to pass. And then they said there's a 6 mil one that's still in the kidney, hasn't let loose yet. Apparently that let loose, and that doesn't fit. Can't get out. Can't leave the kidney. Not going to happen. So it's blocking things. My kidney's exploding.
Oh
and what the urologist told me is the pain is not from the stone trying to move. The pain is it blocking your kidney and your kidney expanding like a balloon, and it's not supposed to. So there's whatever those cells are, there's pain receptors there that are going, nope, this is too big. And that is the excruciating pain that I'm feeling on Wednesday.
Okay.
Because nothing's moving. So they do a CAT scan on me, which gives better imaging than an X-ray. And they're like, oh, that's not a 6 mil stone. That's like an 8 or 9 mil stone. And it is not going to move at all. So they admitted me, and they basically bypassed everything with the stent. So I've got a little detour going on in my kidney. The stones are still there, and they've fallen in a place where I can't get to them. I mean, I can't. I wasn't going to get to them to begin with, right? But they're like, they're going to blast them with a laser. Mark was not prepared for this. This is amazing. He was absolutely not prepared for this.
I think we did discuss on Slack. I said, Tim, I don't know how far I can discuss this because I'll start because I'm a very empathetic person. As you're telling the story, and I do feel like that it's good to relay like your experience over the past 4 weeks because we haven't gotten to talk, and I want to catch up with you. But that is one. Kidney stones and like medical issues like that. I'm like, yeah, that's one thing that I just don't want to feel.
No, you don't. The pain was incredibly painful. It was the thing. It's like, this needs to stop.
Not good.
So it was really something else. But no, they've bypassed it. So they put a stent in, so it allows everything to flow past the stone. And then they were gonna blast it with a laser. And now this gets to the technology side of things, right? And this gets kind of interesting. Because my kids were like, how are they gonna shoot it with a laser? And it's like, well, they're not gonna stick a laser in me, because I don't think that works well. But it's fiber optics, right? Like it's just lasers on the outside, shoot it through a fiber optic cable. The problem is the stone has fallen lower to where I can't. They can't bend the scope and the fiber optic to shoot it. So instead of that, they're going to use this technology that I guess some German guy came up with in, I don't know, the 70s. And this is, again, we're not experts, right? We're basically not experts at anything, but we'll talk about it, right? My understanding is they take sound waves and they push sound waves through water,
that makes sense.
Water carries sound waves very well. And we're 80% water, right? So they put that right up next to you. And then how you drop two stones in a lake and you see the ripples and then you see where they kind of coincide. And they figure out where they're going to coincide. So there's the maximum amount of sound wave energy that kind of collapses right where the stone is to try to break it up. And this energy that's being shot into you, I know you're already in a lot of pain, and they're probably on painkillers too. So do you feel it? These waves go through you? I'm not on. So the thing is, no pain now because everything's flowing fine. The stones are just there. So it's not like there's pain from the stones being there. They do apparently have to put me under anesthesia for this because as you breathe, you move the stone.
Yeah,
so they're going to do that so they can reduce my respirations and then time it right. And I guess they do like a fluoroscope, which was that's like how the cartoons used to talk about X-rays, if I understand it correctly, right? Like where you'd stand in front of the scope and you kind of see inside bodies. A fluoroscope gives them enough to be able to see where the mass of the stone is, so they really can target this with their fancy sound waves. And there's a limit to how many times you can push the sound waves in there because you don't want to damage the kidney. I guess there's the kind of the risk that you could get what's essentially a blood blister on the kidney. And that's not great, but it would go away. But it's just like, I'm sure it's not comfortable or not something that you want. So there's a limit to how many times they can do it, but hopefully they'd be able to blast the big one and break that up and then also get the little one because it's in a different spot and they should be able to hit them both and hopefully break them up is the plan now. So no lasers. I was looking forward to the lasers. Thought that was kind of I was wondering if maybe they let me.
So this is still a procedure that is scheduled to be done. It's not something that happened over the past couple of weeks.
No, it's still scheduled to be done. So they're sitting in there because of the stent. Everything can flow just fine, so there's no pain.
Okay,
that's all good. And then it's just how do we get rid of them? And like, I mean, my dad had kidney stones when he was like 24, and they actually
that's what I was going to ask you because. Twice. That's what I'm more interested to talk about, because I'm always into genetically, what are we deposed to have, in my family, I have, gout. I think I talked about that a couple of times.
Yeah, no, we did.
About like once a month, I get like a gout kind of flare up, and I get that from my grandfather and didn't realize it until I was in my 30s. And then that started developing because you shouldn't get that till you're in your 60s or 70s or but it's a genetic.
You get it early because of genetics.
I'm predisposed to it based on if my diet is off. Like I said, if I eat too much salt or especially sodium. Like, that's why I gave up drinking soda because of it. Like, I don't drink any
Oh, right,
diet soda,
right.
regular soda, just because of the amount of sodium that's in that. It's crazy. So I gave up, consuming as much salt, and that can help manage it. And I don't want to be on medication. I'm trying to avoid that. Trying to, I take a couple supplements, but other than that, I try to avoid the daily medications, because I know when I get to be older, that's probably going to happen anyway. But I want to try to push that off
That
as long as possible.
that was not
But
something I was used to, right? Because they like give you all these meds that you're supposed to take
yeah,
every day. It's like
yeah,
I don't even what.
yeah.
And I got to remember to take this 3 times a day, and this other one. And
Yeah, and so I'm good with taking high doses of ibuprofen if I have to bring down the swelling and the inflammation. I can manage that, and even though if you overdose in that, which I've done a couple of times by taking too much, you can definitely
get a little loopy.
get to be a little bit loopy. Just want to lay in bed for 2 days.
I definitely felt that. Let's pause there for a second, because the pain for a kidney stone, they say, is a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, like, this is not my words. There are women that have had kidney stones that say it is more painful than birth. I feel like it's because at the end of that process, you don't go, oh, look at that stone, it's so cute. I feel like there's a little bit of you discount the pain of childbirth because
Yeah.
you get a cute baby and not a like little asteroid from your body that caused so much pain. But they subscribed. What in the world? Like, if you like it, like and subscribe.
Pound that like button.
My primary doc, when I was having pain, he prescribed Vicodin, 2 Vicodin for me. And if you know Vicodin, they're pretty decent painkillers, right?
Yeah.
It did nothing.
Mm.
It was like I hadn't taken anything.
Yeah.
And that's how much pain it was. I got to the hospital and they gave me some IV pain meds that, wow, those things, they really worked. And they like the guy that, because it first went through the ER through triage, and then they admitted me and all that kind of fun stuff. But the guy that was I think he was a nurse. Yeah. He's like, he'd had kidney stones. He's like, no, don't worry. We'll get you what you need. So yeah. Those pain.
So this is something from
else.
you, like you said, your father genetically. You get it from?
I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming that there's a genetic predisposition to it because my dad had so many. In the end, he was just passing stones that were ginormous.
Yeah, it has to be done. Yeah.
So and he went through like I kind of understand the medical technology getting rid of kidney stones because of him, because he had 2 scars from where they actually cut him open to remove the stone from the kidney, which is like, let's not do that. I don't think I want to do that. And doctors would even come in when he was in the hospital with their students and be like, here, come here. See this guy? This is how we used to do it. And they'd show him the scar, right? So he went from that to the, and I think it's lithotripsy. I think I might be saying it wrong. Sorry, medical people. That's the sound wave thing. And that was relatively new. It was this new like ultrasonic thing. And then I remember later on, he would talk about them blasting them, and he'd call it like the asteroid game. And that's the laser that they put through a scope and like a fiber optic lead, and then just kind of vaporize, break up whatever the stone with a laser. So he's seen all these different advances in how you deal with kidney stones. So I at least was familiar. So when they tell me what they're going to do, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And it was over. When I was younger, it was the lithotripsy all the time. You go down and get them blasted with the sound waves. And then as I got, I think it was probably once I was married, he was still having kidney stones, then he'd talk about and blast him with a laser. So the technology's changed over the years. I guess I'm genetically predisposed because of him. I don't really know.
So is there anything that you can do to manage it, like
That's
a diet?
the thing.
Drink a lot of water.
Well, you drink a lot of water to try to put pressure on your system to push them through.
Yeah.
That's why you.
But is there any way for like the build up? Is there anything that you could take, like a supplement or just food that you could?
The thing they're gonna do, and I know this is a great show, because everybody who tuned into Dev Friday was like, I expect this to be a talk about kidney stones, and you got it, folks. They'll do an analysis once it's all passed, and they think that there's pretty much no stones in my system, because they'll do an analysis then to try to understand what causes them, because they can be caused. If I understand it from what my dad was told and what he relayed to me, so it's secondhand, right? is they basically be like, it could be you have too much calcium,
Okay.
and your body can't get rid
Yeah.
of it.
Mhm.
It also could be you don't have enough,
Hmm.
and because you don't have enough, your body's kind of like pulling it out of, I guess,
Mm.
bones and stuff. I don't know
Yeah.
where, and
Yeah.
it's inefficient in how it makes it, so it's a byproduct. So you could either have too much calcium or not enough. And then they have like these food groups. It'd be like it could be any of the foods in this group, or it could be none of them in any of the foods in this group. And it would be like those are all the foods. It's so you're just saying like it's a thing is causing it, and I could try to not eat all of those or
Yeah.
not eat all of those, and maybe it would do something. I don't know. One thing that they did say is that they looked and I guess my magnesium levels are low, and the doc said that that is what kind of binds to calcium to try to get it out of your body, and if that's low, calcium may try to exit through your kidney, and that could be why. So he's like, try taking some magnesium, see if it helps. So that's but I think
That's right.
that's basically what it is.
We had to
In mind.
approach it as a
In mind.
developer, just a little bit of trial and error, you know,
That's right. That's right.
because there's only so many asserts you can do to yourself, Tim.
I'm gonna say, and in 2 weeks I've booked a retrospective with the doctor, and we're gonna see what we've learned from this. So,
Yeah.
how's the end of your summer, Mark? Mine's been interesting.
Yeah, I know.
Because I had a vacation planned, and there's a community event we are going to do on Saturday, and then Sunday we are going to head out to Cape May, and I got the kidney stone. Well, again, you don't have the kidney stone moved to become a problem the Wednesday before, so I lost 2 days of work and all the prep I was going to do for the weekend, and then went into vacation with a bag full of meds that I'm supposed to take every day. So, how's the end of your summer?
Yeah, the summer ended well. I think
Yeah?
I think I did talk about in the last show that I did get. Oh, maybe it was after the show. I can't remember when we talked about this. That I gave my 2-semester notice at the school.
We did. We talked about that.
So I kind of need to do that so I could start to the transition. And what I've been doing since then, just doing a lot of studying, doing a lot of
Did you get the test
demo
taken
project
yet?
work. I have not taken it yet.
I love
know.
this because you're a
And
professor.
I thought about this today too, as I was going to talk about this. Like, you know how you go to the podcast and people talk about what they've accomplished. I like to do a podcast to talk about things I do not accomplish.
The stuff we didn't do yet.
No, so I still, yes, my plan is, my goal is to definitely have the 2 tests. I want to take the solutions architect AWS test and then the developer test by the end of this month. So then in November I can start putting out some applications. That was my plan to start that process. It still have it scheduled, but I just keep pushing off just a little bit, just because I'm thinking about, I've been doing a lot of studying and I've been really enjoying it because I've been kind of wrapping my head around all the different AWS services, and and both you and I, we've used it for a good number of years. But before I really became serious about it, most of my experience was with like working with like EC2, instances, S3, of course, Route 53 with the domains, and basically that's basically about it. But then after taking the cloud practitioner, the first certification exam, just so I can get my feet wet and get some knowledge of what it's like to take one of these tests, because it's been a long time since I've been a test taker. So I wanted to just do that.
So giver, you're all over.
So I did that I did that during the summer just to get a feel for it and just get a understanding what type of questions going to be asked. And one thing when I was realizing that, when you start to want to become proficient at it, like a cloud platform like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, which I was also using Google Cloud a lot too, actually more than AWS before really trying to focus on AWS, was that there's so much to learn. There's so many different services. There's like over 200, between 200 and 300 services and more that they try to pop out each week for developers to just become aware of, that that these features that the platforms keep adding to the system. And then as a solution architect or developer or DevOps or SysOps, whatever you want to call it, if you're hired for that role, you're expected to become knowledgeable of all these different features and parts of the platform, and then also know how to integrate with them and how to build applications on top of it. So I've been really learning about it, and I feel like I'm almost like 90% with the way there. And I had the exam scheduled last week, and I was like doing a lot of studying, doing some practice exams, doing pretty good on practice exams too. But I was thinking about I I was doing a lot of studying, doing a lot of like kind of book studying, right? Just memorizing, just to kind of understanding just knowledge about the platforms. But I didn't have a lot of practical, like when I was learning about AWS, what was it? Now my mind's going blank now. The Kinesis Firehose, Kinesis streams.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically, you can take like data sources from all these different places, and basically to do like analytics on top of it. For doing a lot of like data analytics, and if you want to do like data warehousing, we talked about data lakes.
Yeah, data lakes. Yeah.
So kind of like these platforms I've kind of read a lot about and know a lot of facts about, but not really have any experience working with them. And I've never really kind of gone through. So what I've been doing since then, I've been doing like a lot of like the labs. Like they have like these small little lab projects that you can download some source code, have some scripts to start some instances or some, basic setup to start to see it work. So I've been kind of experimenting with that. So that's one thing I wanted to do since studying from last week, was really start to apply it a little bit more, because when I go into the test too, I also want to make sure I'm like super, super confident. Like I don't want to be worried about it. And the other thing too, I've been looking at this process, and we talked about, getting certified and, why getting certified, is it really important? But the real benefit about getting certified is that it forces you to really learn what you're trying to get certified in. So that's the other thing. I'm looking at this, and I definitely want to have the check boxes, for my applications when I'm going to be, talking to people and going to be submitting some, applications to different places. But I also want to make sure I'm proficient in it too. So that's what I've been doing, is about trying to apply it a little bit more instead of just going through and just kind of knowing that I know the facts, which I'm getting better at.
Spin something up and play with it, run.
Yeah, because that's also the best way I learn too.
Yeah.
Which, you can definitely brute force it, by doing some memorization, going through these practice exams, which I do highly recommend if anybody is listening to this.
Yeah, practice exams.
Tutorials Dojo, which is a great website that they do not just AWS practice exams and ebooks and video courses, but they do. I think they have definitely Azure, Google Cloud. So like all the cloud platforms, they do great practice exams, and they do ebooks and they do videos. So what I've been doing is I've been reading their ebooks, which I think their books are pretty, about 200 pages. And I think they're well written. And then
is each on a specific certification or
specific exam. Yeah, okay. It's focused on a specific exam, and then going through the practice exams. And I do like the format of what they do with the practice exams, because what I usually do is they have different modes of the exams. You could do like a time-based mode where it tries to simulate like a real exam as close as possible. And you could do, the test bank, or the question that they use in the test bank is, you have like between 200 or 300 questions, so they have a good variety of different questions that they ask.
Yeah.
But I do like also the process. They have like a learning mode to it, or a review mode, where when you're taking the test and you get something wrong, they actually have a really, really good explanation about, why was your answer incorrect? What is the correct answer? Explaining the that the application, or the function, or whatever the question's about, and really kind of giving some good examples about that. So, which I really like the experience of, if I'm going to go take a test, I also want to be able to learn from my mistakes. So if I got the question wrong, I want to be able to understand why I got it wrong, so they don't get it wrong in the future. So, the platform with the practice exams, I think it works out great, but you still need practical experience with going through and be able, once you learn the knowledge, be able to know, then be comfortable logging to AWS to the console or the CLI, and be able to spin up some examples and to kind of apply it too. Cause that's also what I've been working on. So like I said, I do have it scheduled for next week, and I've been kind of still working towards that. So we will have a certification show. Well, once it's done, we should just
do the certification on the show.
I don't
live stream.
I do not think the View. What is it? The View.
Pearson View.
Pearson View. Yeah, I don't think they would. They will allow that. Yes, because if you want to take a test at home, they're pretty strict about it. You'd be in a locked room. You can't have any cameras. One computer. Well, pretty much you have to have a closed off room.
Okay.
You have to. You could just have one computer. Has to be Windows computer.
You have to show them images of this too.
You have to take pictures with your camera, with your phone, before you even log in. Yes, they have a separate. They have a separate web form. You have to.
How do they know that that's actually where you're at, though?
No, what they do then is that they compare the pictures when they first log in, then, and they have your camera
with your camera to be like, it's all the same background.
Yes, they're going to compare the pictures that you took with with your active webcam. And then also what they asked me to do too, when I took this test over the summer, they asked me to take my webcam and move it around the room. and behind the computer, because there
That
are
doesn't work
like
well for somebody who's got their webcam built into their screen. I guess you could
yeah,
just close up
because
your
and I do understand because
laptop.
like it is hilarious if you go onto YouTube and you just search for certification exam
Like 3
cheaters.
developers hiding behind your couch,
Well,
just
they're
waiting to give you
well
answers.
either with like if you search on YouTube for either certification exam, not certification exams, but like interview cheaters or interviews,
Oh,
like
okay.
like
Yeah, yeah,
caught,
yeah.
caught in an interview, and people will like either they'll have people in the same room telling them what to say, or they'll have like another computer or something like that. So I totally understand why
Right, right.
why
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
very, very
they want
careful.
the certification to actually mean something.
Yeah, so I totally understand that. So that's the process. I don't think doing a live podcast or a live stream of the experience, I think that would work out too well. But
Well, I think, but are you sure they wouldn't even love it more? Because then they're able to look and see that you're not asking for help. It's just
yeah,
me making it harder for you.
yeah.
And then maybe
So
they'll give you an extra certification that not only did you get certified, but you got certified with Tim being a jerk. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
So that's
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
that's the web I'm working on. Also been kind of, but teaching's been good. Only teaching 4 courses, mostly just web based. My intro and advanced web courses, and teach my user interface design course for the first time. So that's actually been kind of fun. Doing a lot of Figma work. So getting to Figma, doing some design work with the students. So
Is
that's
Figma the place to go now? Is that what it is?
that is the standard. That's why Adobe bought it for a couple $1 billion, or at least they're trying to buy it for a couple $1 billion.
That's crazy.
Because they knew that it was overtaking the design world, and because Adobe owned the design world, and
Yeah.
Figma pretty much was taking it over, and so they just bought it. Which I don't know I don't think the sales confirmed yet, but it's that's pretty much it
Are
will
they
become
concerned
eventually.
about- Is the concern antitrust, something like that?
Yeah, well, it always is, but it's a matter of like it's going to go through. It's going to go through. Adobe's going to own it, and they're going to roll it into their Creative Cloud account or their subscriptions, and they're going to script the product and
Was
make it
there-
bloated. And
Was there was there already tooling around that to like take a Figma design and then throw it into Illustrator or throw it into Photoshop and get some layers that kind of that make it easy to take to take
Well,
like
it's
an abstract design to the next level?
Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of plugins that are like there are a lot of Figma plugins that'll do pieces of that process. There isn't
Okay.
really a cohesive, okay, if you design a website or mobile application in Figma, basically convert that to, if you're going to convert to a website, convert to HTML and CSS, or if you're React, convert to like React templates and views. Or if you go to, want to do an iOS and Android application, convert that actually to a project, Android, iOS project. Doesn't do that yet. There are plugins that do pieces of that. And it's interesting, AWS has their Amplify. They have like an Amplify Studio.
Right.
You can actually design, you can actually bring in your Figma design into it. And then what it does, it doesn't like convert the whole design, but it'll break up the design into pieces. So if you're designing on a UI with, like, say, your fields, your menu systems, or anything you could see on the screen as being a component, it'll then convert that piece into a React component. And you can download those React components, those pieces, then into your project. So that's kind of an interesting,
But from a
integration.
from a design, so that that feels like you're making the scaffolding for whatever the code or whatever the markup is that you need, and the componentry that you need to realize whatever your design is. But from a design standpoint, if I design something in Figma, do I have to take if I design something that is say more visually, because I know you can be like, oh, this is a select box, and all right, we're going to do that in HTML anyway. But if I start designing something in Figma that's more of a graphical layout type thing, can you go from Figma to like an InDesign?
You mean like
InDesign is actually part of the Adobe suite?
Well, InDesign would be more for if you're designing more of like a print style layout,
right? And would you do that in Figma or no?
You could just. I don't think Figma is really designed for interfaces.
It's just okay, so it's very much UI UX.
Yeah, it's so I don't know if you could definitely probably do that, because you could have an SVG export.
Okay.
So if you want to get an SVG object out, yeah, absolutely you can, and then bring it into that application. I don't know if I would do that for something that's not interactive, either not online or mobile or something like that. But
right. But but for an interactive thing, that's what I'm just wondering, if with Adobe buying Figma, is there going to be more ability to be like, oh, take this Figma, which is kind of like an idea, and let's push it right into InDesign, where you can really nail the interaction and nail if it's a highly specialized user
I think they're going to go the other way. I think they're going to just find easier ways to bring in your Photoshop or Illustrator files.
Oh,
and
is that part of the
provide integration that way.
Like,
which I haven't done too much testing of Figma with that yet. I'm not sure how much. I know they probably plugins that enable that. So if you want to import an Illustrator file or say a raw Photoshop file, how well will it work?
what's the
But that's the
workflow there,
integration
though?
I think Adobe could provide. So if you start in Photoshop, because designers would love to start in Photoshop or Illustrator, and they need to take that into uh, uh, Figma, because the great thing about Figma, you can make it interactive. You can make an interactive prototype. You can mock up your screens, your frames, or your pages, depending upon what app, what your platform is, and then you could then make transitions between those screens, which is something you can't do with Photoshop or Illustrator. So providing better integration to take designs from other applications into Figma, that would actually be something Adobe could do pretty well.
So like if I'm looking at some type of more of an immersive website, right? Not your standard, hey, this is a web app.
Yeah.
We have a normal control surface like that we understand, oh yeah, drop down boxes, buttons, all that kind of fun stuff. But say it's like the marketing site for an escape room or something, and you really want to be immersive in it. You'd have some of these designs in InDesign or in Photoshop, and then you'd say, well, this is what the first page should look like, and then as you go through the door, this is what it should look like. And those are static images that then you can you push into Figma and start mocking or modeling the interactivity. Okay,
it depends.
so,
it depends as a designer, where do you prefer to start?
Right.
So there's a lot of traditional designers, just like me. Like I grew up on Photoshop and Illustrator, so it's kind of like, I feel much more comfortable kind of starting there and then taking it someplace else. But then newer designers who just grew up in Figma, they might just want to use Photoshop for, let's say they had to do some pixel editing or some filters on top of a photo that they want to then bring into their design. That would be that integration would be very valuable to them. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. So I've been doing some.
You think it's going to be good in the end, or you think it's going to be like?
Who knows? Adobe always likes to make their software as fat as possible, and and also they don't have to. Well, they're interesting. They're Photoshop on web, which I think they've utilized the WebAssembly for converting like their Photoshop, kind of a Photoshop Lite, and converting it to the web, using WebAssembly. So, because Photoshop's written in C++.
Yeah.
So they've had a little bit of success with that, but just creating like an interactive kind of web JavaScript based application. They don't have too much success with that.
And that's what Figma is. Right?
It's basically what Figma is. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it.
Is there a desktop app for Figma? There is, isn't there? You can download Figma, right?
There probably is, like what they wrap it in Electron.
You think it's just in Electron?
It might be. I haven't played with the desktop version of it. I know it's interesting with Adobe XD, because before using Figma, I was using Adobe XD a lot, which I actually thought Adobe XD was a nice application. It was a nice kind of trimmed down version, sort of like Illustrator, but just very, very trimmed down. It actually is just like Figma. It's basically like a UI design tool that gives you prototyping, interactive kind of connections you can make between your storyboards or your screens that you're laying out. And so it actually was nice, but it was a desktop application, so you had to download it and run it. It's interesting though, you could see how it was developed. It was totally developed separately from Photoshop or Illustrator, so integration between it was okay, but wasn't really that easy, and or at least going between the applications as from a user, because if you use Photoshop, Illustrator, go to Adobe XD, it was a completely different experience. But I thought they did an okay job with that. But I think they saw how Figma was pretty much just taking over the world when it comes to, mock-up or prototyping tools, and which is what Adobe XD was. And so they're trying to buy Figma. And so when that goes through, they'll just, I'm assuming either Figma will become XD, which I don't think will happen, but XD will slowly, I think, kind of fade away.
Yeah. I was the other day, speaking of the success or lack of success, right, in taking a downloadable application to the web. I was just playing. I hadn't looked at it for a while with the web version of Fusion 360, and it wasn't bad. I mean, I think from my very, very limited experience, I feel like I'd like working in native Fusion 360, but it's one of those things you can't. Fusion doesn't run on Linux. So loaded in my in Chrome and on Linux, and it was decent for just navigating around a model and stuff. I was pretty impressed by what you can do in a browser.
Are they using, because that's for Fusion 360 is a CAD application. So are they using WASM, or I don't know?
I have no idea.
The WebAssembly.
I would assume something, that gives them a lot of because I mean that's really what you.
Yeah, it's because you really need access to the hardware for the
Yeah,
for
because
doing that type of processing.
you're orbiting a model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And SketchUp was browser based well,
That's true.
SketchUp went browser based, didn't they? They
Mhm.
were downloadable, and then Google sold them off, and then there was a browser version, and yeah, I forget how that all progressed, but no, I was impressed by what I could do, in the browser with Fusion. So it's there's a lot more that we can, yeah. Browsers have come a long way, right? And what applications we can write for them for sure. Yeah.
So I know you've been dealing with a lot of health issues, but how's work been going? You able to keep up with work with around all like the
like
hospital visits and the pain meds and
missed a couple days the week before I went on vacation, so that was fun. No, it's just vacation last week, getting back into the swing of things. It's kind of a slow start for slow get back into the swing of things for me, but yeah, works going okay.
Okay.
So nothing to complain about there. What's your feelings about Texas, Mark?
Everything's big in Texas.
Everything's big in Texas. Did you there's a PHP conference coming up in Texas?
I did not know that, because the only PHP conference I know about is the one and only PHP Tech, which is always in Chicago, the middle of the country.
Yeah, well, but it's not always been in Chicago. It is. It will be again next
recently,
year.
Most recently in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, historically it was. It moved a little bit, then it went back to Chicago, and it will be in Chicago next year. And
so what conference, PHP conference, is in Texas?
Longhorn PHP is going to be
November. Oh, okay.
November 2nd through 4th.
Oh, that's right. I think I saw you post about that a few weeks ago. How you got accepted for a speaking gig right there, right?
Yeah, I'm doing the opening keynote at Longhorn.
Look at you, just
next month.
Just keynoting everywhere. Look at you.
Everywhere, both places. Yep, there you go. So that's coming up quicker than I thought, because that's just a couple weeks away now. So
you're gonna try to convince everybody that they don't own anything?
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna spread my. I don't even know what you want.
Which is so interesting, because as I've been going through all of this AWS kind of learning material, they're really big on ownership. So it's interesting. Really? Every time I read something about that, their well architected framework, and a part of that is making sure that the developers or engineers or employees in general are owners of the systems, the platforms that they're developing and managing. So it's interesting. Every time I read something about that, I think of you. I take the complete opposite approach of thinking, no, we're just servants of the platform. Stewards. Well, we're serving. I don't know.
No, but stewardship isn't. It's not like the steward. I mean, it relates to the steward on board of a ship or something. But it's not that. And I think a lot of times when people say ownership, they mean the same thing. I just don't think it's a good label to put on it, because stewardship gives so much more depth to the concept. Because when they say, "Hey, you should feel ownership of this code," all right, I don't like it anymore, I'm going to throw it out. No, you can't do that.
Yeah, no, I get that point too. Yeah,
it's the idea of no, you should feel as if you have the agency to take care of this in the context of whatever the company needs, whatever this project needs, so it's not really mine. I've just been entrusted it for a while. Yep. And when you're done, we're going to trust it to somebody else. Okay. So when I take that philosophy, then all of a sudden I may start looking at things differently. I may start looking at decisions differently. I may feel less weight with the knowledge that, guess what? I'm going to do my best for now. And then it's going to be somebody else's job. I don't have to feel like this crushing sense of responsibility, because it's not me. It's just something that I've been given for right now. Let me do the best I can with it, and assume that the next person is going to try their best as well, and not put too much in it. And at the same time, let me also, if I tend to be a person who's like, I don't care. Well, maybe you should. maybe you should care about who is going to come after you, and making sure you keep it in a state that is good for them, and evaluate those and the impact your decisions have on the people that also are going to share in whatever this does, or the maintenance of in the future, all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, Longhorn PHP, be doing the keynote there. Put a QR code up, as I always do. If you want to get tickets, they're on sale now.
So it's interesting.
Not a sponsor.
I was also thinking about PHP, because it's over, because we haven't talked in feels like a year now.
About a month, but yeah.
Because also thinking about how, like, because I'm also still chipping away at like the next iteration of the devfridayshow.com website, because that is our one project that we work on together. And one thing, and we talked
don't work
about
on it a lot.
well, we push a release every now and then.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had a new show, but like, I'm not sure that it's changed all that much. But yep.
But thinking about, and we talked about previously how it would be great if we kind of build it around AWS and make it a little bit more automated, especially in how like the publishing of the feeds and everything like that, and using. I would also be interested in kind of seeing how we could use it in like more of a serverless model. My dream is if you could just upload the MP3 file, put a little bit of data around it, and then basically just does everything else. That would be great. That's kind of the dream.
Text files.
But think about PHP, because like I said, I was looking at the the library, or not the languages that AWS supports from the Lambda functions, and we can make. And I'm going to try to make a PHP runtime. Could basically compile using.
Yeah, you can. Do they not natively support it?
No, they don't natively support. They don't yet natively support PHP. But I've been hearing, like I said, I also want to ask you, what you've been hearing about PHP in regarding to what's kind of updates, releases, or what's hot about it? Because I have been hearing some positive things out in the YouTubes of how people are looking back at PHP as a fast server-side runtime, especially how the JavaScript world's all come back to server-side now. We've all come back to Web 1.0. Going back to server-side rendering of pages,
with HTMX and all that jazz.
And so people, yeah, and so people are coming back to say, hey, we were doing this back in the PHP days, and it's just come back full circle now. And then people are like, well, if we're doing back PHP day, well, what's PHP like now? And they're taking a second look at PHP and like, wow, it's actually pretty fast. It has a lot of features, has traits. Oh my gosh.
We've had traits for so long.
I know.
Just use
that as one example. And so people are taking a second look at it and saying, wow, like why not?
It's PHP Renaissance, man. I don't know. So
well, do you see the community building? Like the PHP community? Do you think more people are coming back to the fold?
For the like the greater community of PHP developers,
or just building that community of developers? Do you think it's growing in a sense where more people maybe are coming back from let's say Python, or even server side node developers coming back to and building their applications or adding features that maybe to their platforms that maybe using PHP?
I don't know because those stats are hard. At least I'm not familiar with like tracking stats of that kind, right? Like how many I know Stack Overflow does its interview every couple year or every year. Like it's really like what language you use. And if I'm not mistaken, PHP is usually pretty high. So I'm not sure many people have.
It's usually like the top kind of definitely the top half. Yeah.
I think there's always plenty of noisy people that talk about why they didn't pick PHP, but they wouldn't have. So, and they just picked, well, no, this is why I'm going to write this in Rust, or this is why I'm going to do this in Node, or, I'm going with Ruby, or, whatever else is new, Go. And I don't know that those people would have used PHP to begin with, because they just don't like something about the language. Right. And there's plenty not to like about it. There's also plenty to like about it. Right. Like it lets you program the way you want. Which for some people they don't like, but that also means you can program. You can write good code in PHP. You can also write bad code in PHP. Especially modern versions of PHP. Some of the stuff that 8 lets you do, and you can write really good code quickly in PHP. And I don't know that I'd say there were groups like large groups of developers that left and would be coming back. I think it's just no. It is still a good choice for a web application if you're looking to write it, and it's not becoming dated because.
Uh-oh. Is that me or you? Uh-oh, something's frozen. Uh-oh. We're definitely going to fix this one in post. Not sure. With me? Well, I have to open up the Slack because you just totally froze me and I cannot hear you. So I'm here hosting the restream by myself. Which I don't know if, like I said, hopefully it was his connection, not mine. Not sure. Because it looks like the restream is still on. Hit your internet? Let's chat with Tim now.
Hey,
there you
I'm
are.
back. I'm back.
There
Look
you
at
are.
that. Look at that. I don't know what happened.
Wow, it's like that was a little bit of you were on your good PHP ramble there, and you just kind of just we're definitely going to fix that in post because
I
that
don't
was
know that
that was
but
ugly.
What were you saying? Because we have two.
Because I was just
recordings and we
talking
keep
to myself.
over
So
each
I'm
other.
like I had no idea
I think he's
because
gone,
I didn't have
folks.
Slack open, so I didn't have no way to communicate with you. I didn't know if it was me or you or I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was me. I don't know what happened, but apparently there's a blip.
Okay. Because I've been used to having some technical issues the past couple of weeks. That's why I thought it might have been me.
Yeah.
But Restream seemed to be still live for me. So
no, I got mine. It was weird because I could hear you for a little bit, and then I couldn't. Right, and it was like I was saying, "Yeah, I'm here," and then you're like, "I don't think you're frozen."
after 68 shows, I think we should probably get these kinks worked out. We're never getting sponsors.
Speaking of who's not sponsoring us. No,
PHP.
We're talking about PHP, right?
Well, what I was going to ask you as you were talking about was because I was curious about new features because what's hot now is you have like your Rust, you have your Zig, you have your
I don't even know what Zig is.
Your memory safe compiled languages that are trying to provide a better experience or a safer experience for low level C, C++.
Okay, so it's
developers.
It's like C, C++ with guardrails.
Yes,
making
with very
it hard
strict
for you to
guardrails.
do really stupid things.
Yes. So what I was going to
sorry, I shouldn't say it that way. Making it hard for you to do the things that are very easy to do. Then.
So what I was going to ask you is, does PHP have any? Because it does have a type system built into it.
Yeah.
It does use dynamic typing, but you can use static typing in it. You
can also declare strict types. So you can say a particular file must have types.
That's good. So
and it will give you. I think it would be a compiler. I think if it doesn't.
Can you do any manual memory management or? Because it does have garbage collection built into. Well, it's interesting because PHP.
I don't think so.
PHP is that's not a. What do you consider? It's a single threaded process, right?
PHP is a single threaded process.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. So and when it runs on the server, it runs through, and then it goes through the memory. And then once it's done in memory, it doesn't hang around, right? So it's not a non-long running process. Even though you can set it up, there are instances we could work around that.
Depending on how I'll be honest, I'm not intimately familiar with how FPM handles things. I don't know what we do, but yes, from a model that you have in your mind as a developer, the request comes in, my script's executed, that's a process, and then it's gone.
Okay.
And it should, but that's not to say that we can't do long running things in PHP.
In that context, it's interesting. Is really memory management important for a developer?
Yes, but not in the same way it is in other applications, right? Because other applications you have to make sure you are not continuing to consume more and more memory. In PHP, it's like, well, sometimes the user wanted to bring back all of the records. Maybe that is a bad thing. But what's nice is if you made a mistake and allowed that, you impacted a single thread, which may slow down your server, right, for that thread, but then it's gone.
Yeah.
Because it's one request and done. Now, when you run PHP in a context where you're doing a long running process, which is completely possible to do and reasonable to do, then you have to care about memory management a little bit more. And PHP doesn't. I don't know. There's people that are far more familiar with the core and methods that I'm sure I don't even touch. I don't think there's a lot of what do I say, methods, functions, whatever the language gives you to to manage that memory yourself. But there's plenty of methods that you can use to understand how much memory is being used. Right.
Okay.
Like so once upon a time I inherited a project that tried to be a web crawler with PHP, and it was really slow because it was just doing one at a time. So we used Chrome multi so we could be making multiple requests at the same time. But when we do that, we're slurping up a lot of data. So we could run out of memory. So what we'd actually do is we check our memory usage. And if it was getting high, we'd say, okay, don't ask, don't crawl anything else. Let some of these requests actually finish up. And then, and we'd watch our memory and try not to exceed it. But is there ways? I mean, you can. I don't know. I don't know if you can even in PHP tell it to clear the memory. I think it has to be the garbage collector. Now you can do.
Uh-oh. You're frozen again. The internet is dying in Hamburg. It's probably because we're talking about PHP. I think the internet provider is not liking it for some reason. They must be big big node proponents. If you're internet provider, Tim.
Oh, now I'm back. What in the world? What in the world? This is gonna be.
I was saying either just to myself or to those who are listening or eventually listen to this that it's because we're talking about PHP. And this is all happening because there's a conspiracy that the internet providers just do not want you to talk about PHP because they,
what?
We're trying to keep that under wraps.
What? Man, I did not realize that was a thing. I did not realize that we weren't supposed to be talking about PHP, the greatest programming language. Speaking of,
that just doesn't mean personal homepage. It
I
means
think
the greatest programming language.
Before we run out of time here. But no, what were we talking about? I've lost it again. I've lost what we were talking about. Memory management, something like that. Oh,
I was curious if it, because the new features, like I said, I haven't been keeping up with the new features, even though I've been hearing more people coming back to it, at least talking about it again.
Yeah.
And seeing it as like, oh, they've added so much to the language and they're taking a second look at it. And especially since we're coming back to a server-side model in web applications and kind of getting away from the fat client as much and kind of getting back to the server rendering. So, why not use languages that are designed for that instead of client-side languages that are kind of, try to be server-side languages. Even though I do like Node, I do like it, but it's interesting.
I actually think the model with Node, if you're going to get into it, and the fact that you can server-side render something that you can also client-side render and use the same templates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just say, oh, we have the data, render it. Oh, we've got the data from an API, render it. I think that's a pretty cool model myself, but I look at PHP as a great language to write APIs in.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you see, going forward. You see that even though Vue is real big, in the communities for like a client-side language or client-side templating language, in JavaScript that you see that PHP developers use, but you see PHP is primarily an API language. Is that what you?
I mean, no, everybody does. Like PHP is used for everything. The type of code
are people
write,
are people making? Well, that's what I'm asking. Like your experience when you talk to other developers, other developers making Vue-based PHP templated applications a lot, like full stack PHP applications,
like PHP's rendering.
Yeah, PHP's rendering
using Vue on the client side.
Yeah, rendering the HTML and then doing a little bit of Vue for some client components here and there, but primarily everything's being rendered on the server.
A bunch of a mix. I feel, and I could be wrong, but it's like I could be wrong because I give talks on API design, right? Like, so
it's not your domain.
Those are the developers that I'm interacting with. I feel like there's still a lot of places that, we use PHP to power our API, but also probably, if it's just a simple pay, okay, we can render it server side.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're talking about you want something that feels like an application, then I think you're gonna do that in a Vue or React app, and you're gonna power it with an API that is powered by a server side language like PHP.
Yeah.
But that's where it's great that it's flexible, right? I can write my API in it, and my API can or I can even write the code that goes out and fetches and interacts with other services, and is spawned off by some type of job type system. That'll work just fine. I can write my API in it, and then someone can come along and say, hey, we just need this really quick form, and just want HTML and post it and use, I can do that too. And it's easy. It's easy no matter what.
Yeah.
And I can write good. It's not like, oh, and that's going to use old style PHP. No, I can do your server side rendered page and a form post. It's not an API. It's normal server side rendered concept. I can do that with modern clean code using PHP 8. And I think that's really, and
You could even
do it
use
with
a
PHP
class
7 too.
with a constructor.
I mean, we've had that forever, Mark.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm just making. All right, get back to this Longhorn PHP because I'm thinking about it. Since you are keynoting it, I would say you are the third keynoter. You aren't the first keynote.
It's just listen. I don't know why they have it that order. I don't mind that they have it in that order.
You should be up to because I was going to ask you because I've heard of Ed Finkler before. His name sounds familiar. I don't know anything about Sammy Key Powers.
Sammy.
So I was going to ask you. Give me a quick summary of Ed and Sammy. What do they also offer? How are they going to differ from you? From the keynotes? Oh,
there'll be radically different keynotes, right? Because different topics. I'm gonna kick it off. I'm gonna talk about how we model life, really, but also just our development and how we interact with our code community, things like that, and kind of talk about the idea that as developers, and we talked about this before, but like as developers, we will change the model, right? We'll look at it and say, oh, what's a user? User's a username and a password and an age, maybe an address, and then in the future we'll be like, oh, you know what? I don't like that auto increment ID. I want to use a UUID instead. And we used to have a username, but that's dumb that we have a username because everybody has an email address. And that's really what we want. So let's make an email address, and we will change how we perceive a user from our perspective, so we can do what we need to do to better fulfill whatever our objectives are. And what I'm just going to tell the group is, it's also possible to change your mental model as how you look at the world, how you look at code, how you look at the community you're in, and maybe take a perspective that enables you to do more things. And that's what I'm going to try to say is maybe a better perspective is to approach this as, this is all temporary. It's something that I have right now. And really the thing is, what do I do with it? Not what do I have? I don't have to sit back and go, I wish I had that. I wish I had better code. I wish I was on PHP 8 and not PHP 5 where I am. No, it's what I have. Now the question is, what am I going to do with it? So taking that perspective shift can be useful. I'll kick it off with that. I think Ed's doing the second day keynote. Ed's been great in the community to talk about mental health issues.
Oh, okay.
And how we deal with them and how we talk about them and making sure that we're aware of what those issues are. I'm guessing it's going to be some flavor there. I haven't really looked at the abstract yet. And Sammy's been in the PHP community for years. In fact, Sammy started a podcast called PHP Roundtable, which, funny you should bring it up. I'm going to be talking at PHP Roundtable later this afternoon. 1 o'clock.
Look at you.
Or
are you going
Eastern.
To? Okay. Now that you are actually going to start being on other podcasts, we talked about this. If we actually want to start,
I've been on Roundtable before.
If we want to start to grow our community here,
you want me to pitch our podcast?
You have to pitch our podcast.
You want me to
that's what you have to do. Yes,
podcast.
That's a requirement. If you go on another podcast, and if you're on a current podcast, you have to go pitch that one.
Is that the rule?
You just have to drop it. Just drop it a little bit here.
Yeah, PHP Roundtable.
Just do a little name drop
today. All right, we'll see we work. We're going to talk about developer relations. There's going to be. I looked at the list. There's going to be people in the PHP community that are well known in the developer relations side of things, or if you want to call them developer evangelists, developer advocates. We've changed the name so many times. So it looks like a great group that I'm excited to hang out with. There's a guy that works for. I've never met him before, but he works for Nextman now. So. He's having to steward some of the code that I wrote years ago, so I feel sorry for him.
Well, I'm sure that podcast is going to be much more organized.
But what's interesting? Hopefully. I mean, how can it not be? What's interesting about Sammy? I'm bummed because I have to leave Longhorn a little early so I can get home Saturday night instead of Sunday because Sunday for me is pretty important to be back with the family. So I'm going to miss Sammy's closing keynote because he's going to close out the conference. I'm interested because I used to see Sammy at PHP Tech all the time. I've not seen him for years. And from what I saw from the title of his keynote, he's going to talk about why he's been out of tech.
Really?
And
that's interesting.
I'm super interested in talking. So hopefully
Has he been doing some fishing? He looks like from his profile image, he's a fisherman.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hopefully talk with him at Longhorn about that, and I'll catch the stream of his keynote to get the scoop there. But he used to do PHP Roundtable. He doesn't anymore. It's the same guys that do PHP Architect, PHP Tech, And
So
PHP Ugly
he's still
that do
he's still
PHP
in
Roundtable.
technology, just he hasn't been public. You mean being
I don't know.
publicly?
No, he's not been doing PHP roundtables. I've been doing a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So I'm really curious to see what his keynote is. So
All right.
what a show! What a show! It's going to be interesting to hear the crosstalk on this.
No, you're definitely gonna have to fill the. You're gonna have to fix this in post.
I'm just gonna let it go.
Oh my gosh,
it's gonna be great. You're gonna talk. I'm gonna talk. It's gonna be like the connection.
It's
got
one
pulled
thing.
apart.
Okay, if we break connection, if I'm talking,
Yeah.
and let's say and you just disconnect, I'll keep talking. I have no problem with
Right.
that. But when you are talking, when you're doing like you're doing your own dialogue or kind of some of them, I'm like, okay, I'm like, I don't know what to say. It's the worst. So it must be something like I was like. Do you think it was your computer, or your internet?
I think it was my internet.
Because it was always when you were talking. So I was wondering, like the bit rate when you're
I
talking,
don't know.
because you're pushing more bits out when you're talking. I wonder if was something that was.
I don't know. I was just grabbing. What was I doing? I just hit my network and at least jumped on my. I think I was already on my Wi-Fi though. I hit my maybe. I don't know. I'll have to check my other computers.
You're not wired in? You're doing this on Wi-Fi?
No, I'm wired in. I turned
okay.
Wi-Fi on.
Oh, okay.
And because Google works on my other computer, I turned Wi-Fi on and I turned my hotspot on. At least I tried to turn my hotspot on, and then I turned it off again. Okay, so yeah, I was trying to think, how am I going to get this working? Because usually, the problem is I have my hotspot on my phone set to the same SSID as my home network.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Because then that's like I just turn it on and all my devices just go, sure.
Okay. Yeah. In case you lose internet, you can have a nice backup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you lose internet at your house and I turn this on, the problem is I still have Wi-Fi here. It's not that my Wi-Fi went down. It's not my network. So now I've got two networks competing over it. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to tether this in to get back online, and then it just popped up. So I have no idea. But we'll see.
Well, like I said, we had to work out the kinks because it's been a little bit to kind of get back into the flow. So
yeah, I have no idea what's going on there though. So that'll be fun.
All right.
We'll mix that together, and no one will know what happened. You'll be saying stuff. I'll be saying stuff.
I'm not saying. I was just talking to myself. I was like, guys, I know what to do. Like I said, if I was talking about something, I could have carried on. I probably wouldn't even notice that you left. Like I do.
I may have been. I left multiple times.
Honestly, that's the way I teach my classes too. I'm just talking. I'm like, I don't even care if there's any students here. I'll just keep talking.
That's hard. Right? That's hard. Like when you do the fully virtual conferences or something, you're just looking into a camera.
Oh yeah, that is tough. Yeah,
like
I can imagine that.
To keep the energy you want.
Yeah.
To talk to no one.
Well, I've gotten better at that. since doing remote classes, because that's basically what you have to do. And then also, two students like they start the semester with their Zoom cameras on, and then by the midpoint, they have them all turned off. They're just black screens. I'm looking at black boxes. So I just got used to just talking to myself then.
Are the students even there? Or they just
eventually what I'll do is I'll do like between like 10 and 15 minutes. I'll show them something. I'll do like a lecture part of the lecture, and then I'll touch base with them. I'll try to call them out. Try to for them to kind of respond to me, to have a little bit of feedback. But most of the time when I'm actually talking and doing demonstration or lecturing, I'm mostly just talking to myself. So yeah, that's
why I was like,
it is what it is.
For those situations, I'm like, please, if you have questions, throw them in the comments.
Oh
while
yeah,
I'm doing it. I want to see that there's engagement.
Yeah.
And
and also if something happens too, you could always have like a backup if they have questions that you could kind of fall back on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully this week,
jump back in the saddle,
catch up. Hopefully this week is a little bit better from a health. When is you still have the procedure though, right?
So
you haven't scheduled that.
They haven't, because the urology practice here doesn't have those fancy machines. So we have to go someplace else. So they haven't got that yet.
And I was gonna ask, but I didn't want to do this on the stream or record. So are you?
But we are still streaming. There's that.
Well, if you want to close it off now, you can. Because I was going to ask you about your because you started to talk about the billing. I was going to ask you about your personal insurance, like how, because I know your wife Katie was like you used to be a nurse. You guys always had probably good insurance back then. So what do you guys do now?
So we do medical sharing, right?
What is that? What is that?
So that's when ACA came out, and there was the what was it? The I forget what they called it. It was the requirement, like you had to have insurance, right? And you had to get it from the healthcare plans.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a provision made if you're part of a medical sharing group, you can use that.
Oh, okay. So you have
And
like a group.
that's
Okay.
right. That's where
Like
it's
a
like,
community that you kind of share the.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we're part of one of those, even though I kind of wonder if I should just go to catastrophic health insurance now. Because what happened is when we got off of the hospital provided healthcare, when Kate stopped being a nurse. Well, even when she went part time and we had to kind of like, we could pay for that insurance, and then we got off of it, and then we had to go to the marketplace. When we started all that, I think insurance for us was, I want to say, six or some $800 a month for our family.
Yeah,
And
it's crazy.
every well,
We-
whoa, that was good. It was like six to $800 a month, and then every year they wouldn't increase the price of the plan; they would cancel the plan, and you'd have to go back to the marketplace,
Oh, and you had to get a new one, and
and
that
you
would
have to
be
get
more
a new one.
expensive. Oh,
And
yeah,
every
gosh.
year it got higher till at the end when I finally was like, we're not doing this anymore.
Oh,
It was $2,200 a month to insure my family. You look at the math in that, you're like, okay, so it's basically 25 grand a year to do what?
and how much? And how much of that are you really utilizing? Unless something,
Right,
you
unless
just
something, so it's
it's
like
just emergency. Yeah,
catastrophic.
yeah.
Yeah, give me something that has like a 10 grand deductible, and I'm not paying that on. So we went to medical sharing, which now that's still at this point right now we're looking at about $700 a month. So basically, what happens is every month we get a notice, and it's like, hey, can you send a check to this person so they can help cover their?
Oh,
And
okay.
it's about a $700 check.
Hmm.
And when something happens to us, they're like, okay, don't worry about it. We'll just take that off of yours,
Mhm.
and people will send you money. So I go there and I ask for cash pay discount, which is
Yeah.
always interesting.
Yeah.
Usually it's
Yeah.
like for time of visit stuff, it's basically a 50% discount.
Hmm.
But for my stay in the hospital, right now the bill, $37,000 for one night
Yeah.
in the hospital, and then basically put a stint in me. And it hasn't been adjusted. It hasn't been adjusted yet. My gut says it'll be significantly less, because insurance doesn't pay that. If you ever look at your insurance, it's
Hmm.
it's such a broken system, because the
Yeah.
hospital did that, and the insurance says, no, we're not going to pay that. We're only going to pay this much of it because we're buying in bulk from you. And so they have these exorbitant prices just so they can actually get what they think is a fair price. But then when I walk in the door, it's like, oh, so then they have to come up with cash pay discounts so they can actually bring it down to what it really kind of actually costs, and is more in line with what they will actually get from an insurer. And the biggest insurer in the United States is Medicare,
Hmm. Yeah.
and they pay nothing. Like they make it so difficult for hospitals to get money. So it's just a completely broken system. And we're like, oh, this is why you need insurance. And it's like, no, this is why the insurance model here is pretty
I know.
broken.
Well,
But
that's it. That's something I'm starting to think about too, because I'm like, because like, yeah, like my wife, my wife's officially retiring, and
oh yeah,
at the end of the end of the year, so at the end of December. So, and technically, I'm on her insurance right now, even though I have the exact same plan at the college, but I had to switch the family over to mine financially, because if I'm still working the college into the semester, um, it won't affect us financially, because it'll be basically the same thing. But if I leave, then what are going to be the options? Also, too, I have some inclination that I would love to, if I could find a company that could offer good benefits, and kind of, and it was a good opportunity to do that. But at the same time, I don't know. The consulting thing is kind of interesting to me, if I can make that work and just kind of work more independently. But then you have the insurance, so that's kind of the big thing. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
and we naively sometimes think, oh, that's a great thing for a company to offer you. No, it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible
So,
thing for us to think of it in terms of employment, because all it does is it makes
yeah.
it
What
it
it
makes
locks
it,
you in. Yeah.
yeah. Then
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I can't leave this terrible
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah.
because how else will I take care of
Well,
my family? It's
that's
terrible.
that's the big benefit. Like, we don't get, if you think from a market kind of standard, like, what we get paid at school isn't that much, but the insurance is really, really good. So that's why, and people stay at the college, work at the college, just because, and they say they're upfront in the meetings, like they'll just work there just because the benefits.
Yeah.
Even though they won't increase their salary each year, but they'll keep the benefits good, because they know that keeps the people there.
Right. Right. And it's, I mean, in a good situation, it's good. Like, it's like, oh, these are great benefits and you're providing. Yeah, it's nice. But also at the same time, in a bad situation, you're like, I feel like I'm trapped because
yeah,
I can't, I can't take on this because no longer is it possible really for me as an individual to play this game.
yeah.
And that's
Yeah, I know, because
unfortunate.
I was thinking about that. Like, I would even like if I, because you did that for a while, like even like to transition out, if I could even find like a contract gig, like go from
Yeah.
like a 6 month to a 9 month contract gig and not be full time, just work independently, like for one company. I would actually love that opportunity, but then I won't get benefits from it. So it's
Right.
like, I
Right.
don't,
So you got to
yeah,
price in. You got
yeah,
to price in like 30 some grand more to cover
yeah.
that. So,
Hmm. Yeah, my wife
crazy.
said my wife's looking forward to like, oh yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what benefits the company they work for is going to offer. I'm like,
Looking for
well, because she and the kids use it a lot more than I do. Like, I barely go to the doctor, and I because my
that's the
and my
math that I was trying to run too in my mind, like for the catastrophics. Like the most expensive thing that could happen to us usually is a childbirth,
mhm,
which in a
you're d-
hospital, I think the average cost in the hospital is $12,000. We use a midwife, and it's a flat rate of like $4,000 or $5,000. And then if you look at it, you're like, I'm paying $600-700 a month, even with this medical sharing thing.
mhm,
Like, wait, even if it covers that, I'm still paying more.
yeah,
So maybe I should go to a lower premium with a catastrophic plan that says, oh, your deductible is $5,000 per event, but your monthly premium, and then like you do the math and you try to figure it out. It's like, well, is it worth it? Would it have been worth it over the past years? Of course, now if I turn into being the kidney stone manufacturer that my dad was, then it's like, no, no, I don't think so,
oh jeez,
because this is not, yeah, this is because like that's the bill right now. I'm going to go in. I think the procedures, I'm pretty sure, is outpatient, because I think it was when my
yeah,
dad was doing it. So it's only gotten easier, but they're still going to put me under. So I think it's like
yeah.
$7,000 to put you under.
So as a GM, my wife and I were just dealing with something too, like where she was in the she had a procedure done yesterday, and she went to St. Luke's, Allentown,
Yeah.
to get it done. It was just like an outpatient surgery. She went in the morning, and then she was out by the afternoon. And then she's she's at home now, but kind of just in bed recovering from it. But it was like a nasal, had some work done on her nose, and she had this was her second procedure that she had done. The first procedure she had done was in an outpatient facility, like kind of one of those fancy kind of offices that they do surgeries in the office, and she was in and out within like 2 hours, and they pushed her out. They didn't want her to stay like for the recovery. There's basically no recovery in there, and they pushed her out as fast as possible. The hospital was a completely different experience, where everything took so long. Where I was there, I dropped her off at 9 o'clock. We didn't get out of there till 3 o'clock yesterday.
Yeah.
Like it was, and not her surgery was about 2 hours, but then it was like the pre-op stuff, the post-op stuff, everything was. And I was thinking to myself, it's probably the reason why they're doing it is because the hospitals are used to just billing this, and the outpatient facilities, they just want to get you in and out as fast as possible, because the money is just different how it works between the hospital and the facilities.
I'm guessing
From an insurance perspective, like how much they get for it, like because the hospital, they're billed kind of per time how much the person's there, because they're not in a rush to get somebody out as much.
I don't know. My bill wasn't my bill was for all the hospital services was itemized, but I don't know that anything was related to time. It was just like, well, this is how much it is to put you under. This is how much it is
Mm-hmm.
to have you. But this is like how much it is to use the OR.
Yeah, yeah,
But they definitely weren't in a hurry.
yeah.
Like they bring me down like an hour before surgery, and it's like you don't want me to have anything. I don't have my phone. I don't have anything. I'm just sitting here just waiting.
Yeah. So it was like I said, if you do go to the other facility, but she didn't mind getting in there and then everything happening super fast the first time. She didn't like when she came out of anesthesia, they just pushed her out the door.
That's tough when you're still like,
yes, that was
anesthesia's crazy.
like
I don't
they
even
had her,
remember.
they forced her to wake up, and they gave her like a half hour, and they were like, you got to get out here. And they pushed her out, and the hospital is completely different story. And that's why she went there, even though the whole experience was much, much longer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm totally agree with you. Like the whole medical system, I don't like to talk about too much or go down that rat hole, because it's like, yeah, it's become so divisive, like politically and everything like that. But yeah, it's just not.
Yeah, and it's like you can't just take like you can take it, but it's hard to take just a position where it's like can we just it's broken.
Yeah.
And some people are like, no, it's not broken because they want to say that single payer's broken and our system's not broken. Yeah, like, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying single payer is the way to go. Well, it's just like it's broken,
Yeah.
it's, or no, it's not. Yeah, like there's like you said, there's so much politics around it.
Well, it's also a shame too because we can't. It would be nice if we could just go back to a world back in the early days where everything we did pay out of pocket,
Well,
and
that's what.
because then it would be interesting to see how cheap all the services would be because they'd be forced to be competitive and they would be
Mhm.
forced to keep the prices
And
low.
and then the argument there is, well, you don't want doctors to be competitive, or what if people couldn't pay it? That's why you need insurance. And like, there's
Yeah.
aspects that are true, but the current system, it's hard. It's really hard to look at it objectively and say there's not problems here.
Well, because the establishment rigs it. It is like a rig. They rig it to benefit them financially.
And well,
It is what it is.
we keep on adding more layers.
Yeah.
It's like legacy software where you're like, oh, like just like add another layer on top to fix this. Like you didn't fix it.
Yeah.
You just made it more complex. But that's, I mean, for our family doctor, that's what we do. We have a doctor that we pay every month.
Oh, you just did like
And
a subscription. And
yep.
can you are you kind of maxed out how many visits you can do, or is it kind of like whenever
Nope.
you anything
Nope.
with comes up with the kids, you just like
No, there's no limit to your visits.
How
or
much do you
anything.
pay for that for the doctor for the
I don't
family?
remember off the top of my head because my wife kind of manages that. It's
Okay.
gone up a little bit, but that's a whole movement called DPC, direct primary care,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it really is the kind of the pushback
That makes sense. Yeah, and that
from
actually, yeah,
from your insurer telling you, well, you have to go to this doctor, and then you
yeah,
going to like a primary practice where your doctors are changing. You don't even have a relationship with them because, hey, oh no, Bob moved on. Now you're talking to Alice, and it's like, okay, I can't I can't actually have established rapport with my doctor,
hmm
because I don't even know who they are at this big hospital run, GP practice, which is where you find yourselves a lot if you're just doing whatever your insurance company says. Well, this
yeah.
is what's in our I forget what they call it, but in our plan. So no, we just pay a doctor directly, and it's great because like I can just call him. He knows me, right? He knows me. He knew I was having kidney issues. We just called him. He prescribed what he could give me. It didn't work. But that's not his fault that the pain wasn't going to be touched by the meds that he could prescribe.
Yeah.
I had to go to the hospital anyway because
Yeah.
this thing wasn't going to move, and that's fine. But like we'll send him. You talk about like televisits. We'll send him images of like a rash in the kids. What do you think about this? And with my wife being a nurse, they just have a conversation, and he either recommends something, or if he has to prescribe something, he prescribes something. So it's great. I that type of relationship to me makes sense because I'm paying my doctor.
Yeah, no, that makes
You
sense.
know?
Yeah, I would be on board with that. Yeah, because I don't go. That's the thing is I don't go to the doctor that much. Like my wife, if my wife has something happen or the kids have something happen, they get worried about. They'll want to go see their the family
Mhm.
practitioner. I'm kind of like maybe it's because I've had bad experiences of them like prescribing wrong things or just
Mhm.
bad stuff happening after I've gone there. So I kind of try to avoid it as much as possible, unless I'm in pain. But yeah, so I don't use as much, but I would be all up for that model of saying, yeah, it's a kind of a subscription. You just sign up for it, commit to it, and then you at least have that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's some of them even have, and this is, I think some of this has stopped. I don't know why, but because we worked with two different DPCs in the past, um, and both kind of offered this, and then I think it went away. But there's other things like, yeah, if you need to get certain certain over the counter medicine, you can get it from us cheaper, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
because or diapers was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we're doing a bulk buy, and you can get Pampers at what it doesn't
Yeah.
nowhere close to what it costs in the store. So, and it's because it's kind of like because you're a subscriber to their service.
Oh, the one thing
Um,
I forgot, yeah, I discovered because my dog last year we had the issue of like the pharmacies who actually do what what composing. What's the word? They make their own.
oh yeah.
And so there's one in Allen. There's one like, right across the street from Dorney Park, and you go there, and it's like, and they specially just the compounding. So
Mhm.
they have the source compounds, and then you give them prescription, and they'll make it for you.
They'll make it for you.
And usually it's half the price.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it's like it's super cheap because they're making it in house for you, and like the way that they market is saying like, yeah, it's supposed to be financially a better option than,
Right, because
kind of,
instead of you're basically getting like the generic because they know the
Yeah.
formula.
yeah.
Once whatever the patent or however that works in medicine.
Yeah, so that's something that we do occasionally especially if we get a prescription for something that's kind of crazy and we're like, okay, is that really necessary, or think of another option for it.
This is a fascinating after show. Look at that.
Well, it is something, like I said, it has been on my mind because of the job transition in the future, and that's something our family I'm probably going to have to deal with, and because I don't think it's going to be a direct, wherever I end up, I don't think it's going to be a direct, transfer of the type of insurance that we have now compared to what could be in the future. So definitely there's going to be a change there.
So that's going to be the title for next one. I don't know what I'm going to call it. Benefits.
Benefits, yeah. Developer benefits.
It benefits. There we go. I don't know what that means, but that's what we got. That's our new title. Oh, but I changed it now, so it's going to change it in. It's probably going to change the title. Shoot. Oh well.
All right. Well, we'll see what it goes. My rescheduled exam is next Friday afternoon. So if all goes well between now and then with my studies, and I feel confident, then I can be very confident on the podcast with you and be like, yes. And then hopefully that'll be it. But yeah, I have basically a couple more weeks, but my goal is by the end of this month. So 2 more weeks, I want to try to wrap this up. So then we can have a certification special.
Certification special. I like that.
Yeah.
I forgot. I don't even remember what I had as the title for this one, because it just changed on me, and I forgot. It's going to be 68. Oh, end of summer. Okay, so I'll change that in a second. Cool.
All right. Well, have fun in your other podcast.